Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And like I have done recently, I am going through all of Kevin Smith's films. And today we are doing the 2019 film Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the rideshare app that Jay and Silent Bob use throughout the film? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So this film starts off with Jay and Silent Bob being arrested and then being brought to court where they find out they can no longer use the names of Jay and Silent Bob. The reason for this is Jay and Silent Bob have actually signed the rights over to their names and likenesses for the new remake coming out called Bluntman v. Chronic. This is a reboot of the original Bluntman and Chronic movie that Jay and Bob were trying to stop from happening in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So Jay and Silent Bob discover that the director of the new film is going to be at Chronicon in California, which is a convention celebrating the original film. So once again, our boys are going to have to travel from New Jersey all the way to California. Now along the way, Jay and Bob end up running into Jay's ex, Justice, who not only is married now, but also has a daughter, and to Jay's surprise, that daughter is his. So when Jay's daughter Millie and her best friend Sopapilla overhear that Jay and Bob are heading to ChronicCon, they talk their way onto the trip. And if two teenage girls weren't already a handful for Jay and Bob, they also end up picking up their other two friends, Jihad and Shan Yu. So will Jay and Silent Bob not only make it to ChronicCon, but manage to stop director Kevin Smith from making Bluntman v. Chronic so they can keep their names, but also keep an eye out on Millie and her friends. So this movie was written and directed by Kevin Smith. So right after Kevin Smith had a heart attack, he decided in the hospital he was going to make another movie, as he couldn't bear the idea of Yoga Hosers being his final film. He originally started working on Clerks 3, but after a fallout with Jeff Anderson, who plays Randall, he changed his mind and started working on Reboot. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot is actually the 8th movie in the View Askew universe. So just like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, the movie takes place all over the United States, but it was primarily filmed in Louisiana and a little bit in New Jersey. What's interesting is the quick stop that they used for this film was not the same one used in the first and second Clerks movies, as that was actually in New Jersey. This was just a store that looked similar and then was converted that was in Louisiana. This is definitely the View Askew universe film with the most relatives to Kevin Smith in it. You have Smith's daughter, Harley Quinn Smith, playing Millie, who is one of the main characters. Jennifer Schallbach Smith, who is Kevin Smith's wife, plays the manager at the Mooby's restaurant. You have Donald Smith, Kevin Smith's brother, and Grace Smith, Kevin's mother, who play cosplayers. And finally, you even have Kevin Smith's sister, Virginia Smith, reprising her role from Chasing Amy. Jason Mewes even has a couple of his family members in the movie as well. Jordan Monsanto, his wife, plays one of the bailiffs, and his daughter, Logan Mewes, plays Amy. You also have quite a few actors from the View Askew universe appearing in this film as well. A good chunk of the Clerks cast comes back as the panel for the Clerks movie, including Brian O'Halloran, Marilyn Gigliotti, Walter Flanagan, Scott Schiaffo, Ernest O'Donnell, and John Wilyoung. They also have all four of the guys from Comic Book Men, Walt Flanagan, Brian Johnson, Ming Chen, and Mike Zapsek. Brian Quinn from Impractical Jokers also makes a brief cameo. Shannon Elizabeth reprises her role of Justice from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Rosario Dawson is back, but not reprising a role. She's playing Justice's wife, Reggie. Jason Lee reprises his role of Brody Bruce from Mallrats and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Joey Lauren Adams is reprising her role of Alyssa Jones from Chasing Amy and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Ben Affleck returns as Holden McNeil from Chasing Amy and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Matt Damon has a brief cameo interlude as his character of Loki from Dogma. Both Jason Biggs and James Vanderbeek reprise their roles of themselves from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Diedrich Bader comes back as the security guard. Joseph D. Reitman also comes back from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back as the assistant on the movie. And Jake Richardson and Nick Fellinger also come back to reprise their roles of the kids trying to buy drugs from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. You also have some other actors that have appeared in other Kevin Smith films that are now in the View Askew universe, like Craig Robinson, Justin Long, who pretty much is almost playing the exact same character that he played in Zack and Miri Make a Porno. There's also Adam Brody and Ralph Garman, and even Stephen Root, although only in voice, as he apparently does the voices for the Cockmandos. And then, of course, you've even got actors that are completely new to the View Askew universe, like Tommy Chong, Fred Armisen, Molly Shannon, Chris Hemsworth, Joe Manganiello, Val Kilmer, Melissa Benoist, Jesse Rath, Chris Wood, which those last three joined due to their relationship with Kevin Smith directing at least 4 episodes of the Supergirl TV series. You also have wrestler Chris Jericho, Dan Fogler, Method Man and Redman, David Desmelchin, Donald Rawlings, Kate Micucci, Keith Coogan, Frankie Shaw, and even Robert Kirkman. Originally, Stan Lee was going to be in the movie, and he was going to play the character of Kevin Smith, but instead of it being Smith, it was going to be Stan Lee. But with Stan Lee's passing, that unfortunately didn't happen. Another View Askew universe actor that passed away before being able to be in this film was George Carlin. But when Kevin Smith is playing Kevin Smith, he's wearing a George Carlin shirt. Aside from the panel scene at Chronicon, Brian O'Halloran also does play Dante right near the beginning of the film. Now, Randall doesn't actually show up in the film, but Dante does reference him, and the reason why he didn't show up, as I mentioned earlier, is there was a falling out between Jeff Anderson and Smith before this movie started. Will Ferrell was offered the ability to reprise his role from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but unfortunately due to scheduling conflicts, he wasn't able to. Mark Hamill was offered the opportunity to reprise his role of the Cockknocker from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, but he was busy filming the new Star Wars trilogy. Did you happen to know that this was the View Askew universe film with the most Batman in it? You have Ben Affleck, Val Kilmer, and Diedrich Bader, who did voice Batman in a cartoon series called Batman the Brave and the Bold. The name Ted Underhill, which is the character played by Ralph Garman, may or may not sound familiar if you ever watched the 1985 film Fletch. In the film, the character Fletch actually does charge his stay at a room and meals to the name Ted Underhill. Smith at one point was going to direct a Fletch prequel called Fletch 1 with Jason Lee starring in it, but that never ended up happening. One more thing involving Jason Lee, although more specifically his character of Brody Bruce, during the end credits of this film, he mentions his daughter Banner, which is not only a great Incredible Hulk joke, but is supposedly one of the main characters of a second Mallrats movie if it ever gets made. There's also a reference to Dogma in this film, as you can see a Buddy Christ on the dashboard of the van. So when it comes to the film Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, this movie is definitely entertaining, and it does harken back to a lot of stuff that's happened in the Askew universe. But I will say the story itself isn't all that cohesive and isn't that great. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. If you did enjoy this movie, other movies I recommend checking out are Fanboys, any of the Harold and Kumar movies, any of the Bill and Ted movies, and Dude, Where's My Car? And now it's time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. What is the rideshare app that Jay and Silent Bob use throughout the film? The app that they use is called Ride Me Now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.